All right, I was going to add this to my previous video on the real-time clock for the Amiga 1000 here, but I've decided to make a short video, additional video, as I'll add a bit about the fact that I have a working mouse. It is not the Amiga mouse, but it is a working mouse. So first off, yeah, let's talk about the real-time clock. My last video was pretty much the hardware side of the real-time clock that's contained on the DKB Insider 2 memory expansion board. Unfortunately, I had something wrong in the software side. I've been doing just mainly hardware stuff and have barely scratched the surface of software stuff on the Amiga, and I have forgotten like almost everything that I knew about Amiga software working with Workbench and all that stuff. So I wanted to make a small correction to what I did in that past video. And I don't think I showed this, I think I just mentioned it. There is a file in Workbench in the S directory called startup-sequence. And it does some things here that you can see. It does some system setup. And one of the things it does is the clock. Now you can see right above where the mouse is, hopefully there, where it says RT clock, and then a semicolon, which indicates that what comes after that is a comment. Load system time from real-time clock on DKB Insider 2 PCB. What I had before was RT clock space load as one command, because what the Workbench disk comes with by default is set clock space load, and then a semicolon and a slightly different comment saying basically that set clock loads the system time. So when I booted with RT clock space load and then a semicolon and a comment, I was basically saying RT clock program and passing it the parameter load. And that is incorrect. So that is why you see the list of commands available to RT clock. And I've also simulated it here again by typing RT clock space duh, and it displays this command because it doesn't understand duh. Just like when I showed the boot up sequence in the real-time clock video. During boot up, it showed these commands and not the time, because I had that wrong in the startup sequence. It was supposed to be just RT clock and not RT clock load. So once I fixed that, when it boots up, it shows me the time. And here's an example of that. Type RT clock, Thursday, 13th of March, 25, and then the current time. Oops. Current time, okay. So it is now working properly. I'm currently running off of the virtual Gotek floppy drive right now. So the virtual Workbench disk and the physical Workbench disk that I have are both set up to properly boot, and as it boots, it will show the time. And you turn the computer off, you turn it back on later, and it remembers the time. So the real-time clock is properly working. Another thing to show, start the clock program for the Workbench disk. And there you go, it's 2:05, oh no, 2:06. So the Amiga does know what time it is, which is cool. So the other part of that I want to talk about is the fact that it says 13th March 25. Now, in my other video, I said that it only has 2 digits and it's not Y2K compatible. Well, that's only partially true. It actually is some of Y2K compatible. Now, I haven't done the test to actually make sure that my theory is correct and what I've read is right. But from what I understand, the Amiga clock basically cannot be set earlier than, to a date earlier than January 1st, 1978. So what that means is it probably will be unable to be set to a date after December 31st, 2077. If you do that, I believe it will roll over to January 1st, 1978. So it will be Y2K compliant until, I believe, December 31st, 2077. And with only 2 digits, how can you tell whether that's true or not? It's basically, I guess, going by the day that says Thursday, 13th of March, 2025. If you look at 1925, the 13th of March is probably not a Thursday. So that's a way that you can tell that it is actually Y2K, even though it doesn't say 2025. It just says 25. So it's partially Y2K compatible, and probably the rest of my time using this Amiga or being on this planet probably it's going to be compatible. But once you get past 2077, then yeah, you're going to have an issue unless by that point somebody has rewritten the software in a way that would make it work past that point. So that's it for the real-time clock update. The next thing is the mouse. I have a working mouse now, and it's due to this device here. I bought this device on eBay. There are several different USB to Amiga adapters online. This one is Amiga or Atari. There is a small black switch there by the light that can go left or right. In one direction is Amiga and one is Atari. Now, my only problem with the seller is that his instructions that don't actually come with the device, they're in his ad. The device only shipped with the device. His instructions on the eBay ad say up and down. So I can't remember. It's either up for Amiga and down for Atari or the other way around. And I'm like, okay, what's up? I have no idea what up direction is on this device. Left or right would have made more sense. Or, in my opinion, what it should say is, if using on Amiga, place the switch towards the USB port. And for Atari, the switch should be away from the USB port, and that would make it pretty straightforward. The other thing, I don't know what happens if you plug it in the wrong way. Will it just not work? Or will it short voltage to something that it shouldn't and damage the device and or your Amiga? I don't know, just by reading the documentation. Because the documentation pretty much just says left for one computer and right for the other. Or I mean up for one computer and down for the other. So I looked online, and I'm pretty sure the circuit board that's in here I saw online, sold by other people. So somebody designed the PCB, and I think multiple people sell them, assembled. Um, and I saw that for an Amiga that the switch was facing this way. There are pictures in the ad, but they're really hard to tell because that is a really small switch, and the views don't tend to be like this where you can kind of see the raised part. They're like from straight above where you can't really tell which direction that switch is in, even by zooming in on the photos. So after verifying, due to a little bit of research online, the other thing I found was that a lot of people were saying it won't work with mice that are wired because of power consumption, but they were able to use it with wireless mice. So I was a little concerned about that and didn't know how to tell how much power was too much power, and is it a matter of a weak power supply in the Amiga, or the Amiga doesn't provide that much power to the port. But it sounded like if it doesn't work, then it's the power issue. So I looked, and I have 2 spare mice, and if you look on the bottom of your mice or inside, wherever the technical data is, here's another one. Somewhere in there, you might be able to see it there. Third line up from the bottom where it says 5 volts at about 100 milliamps. So both of these spare old wired mice I have say 100 milliamps. So I plug this one in. This one just has a nicer feel to me than that other one. And it's, like I showed, it's working fine. Movement and clicking. So I am happy with that. And, well, I'm okay with that because I did want to fix the tank mouse. I'm going to have a video on that if I can fix it. Basically, it comes down to I'm trying to replace the phototransistors, and they're not sold anymore, and I'm not finding a site that I trust that has stock of the old ones. So I bought some new ones from a different place, and they are a different package size. And after replacing them, the mouse, funny enough, works if I spin the mouse wheel with my fingers, but not when I roll around with the ball. And I had to cut the phototransistors down to fit in the Amiga case, and I'm not happy with that. So I might be going to a used PC store to see if I can find a couple old mice that still use the ball and see if they use the same sensors to give that a try. But this one does work so far anyway. And I don't want to put a link to eBay in my video because those links tend to change quite a bit, and people offer products and don't offer products. But it was a Ukrainian seller, and it's basically an Amiga or Atari ST mouse that can use mice that do not have to use the USB or the PS2 protocol. That's something that some of the USB mice adapters require, is that the mouse that you use has the USB, or the PS2 protocol, even though it's a USB device. This one specifically says that that's not required. And I'm thinking that's true because this is probably new enough that it's not PS2 compatible, although I don't know that for sure. I didn't actually look up the model number online and see what the year is on this, but yeah, it seems to be working okay so far. This is my first day of testing, and it is so nice to have a working mouse compared to using the Amiga keys, which does work but is a pain in the neck. Hold down an Amiga key, either one, and use the cursors, and you can move the mouse around. And then by using Amiga key and Alt, there's left shift and right shift, or click, sorry. Right click by using the Amiga and the Alt together, and left click by using this Amiga key and Alt together. But it's a pain in the neck moving the mouse around because it moves super duper slow if you just hit the cursor key. Use the cursor key, unless you hold it down, and then it goes super fast. So it's kind of a pain in the neck to direct it places. So that's why I went ahead and got this adapter, even though I want to fix the original tank mouse, just so I can have a mouse for other things that I'm doing until I can get the tank mouse sorted. And that's it, a little update. Basically, I figured out RT clock on the software end. Just edit your startup sequence on your Workbench disk, and where it says set clock space load semicolon, just change it to RT clock, and then semicolon, and whatever comment, if you want to leave the stock comment in there, or change it like I did to say RT clock, and mention that it happens to be the command to use the real-time clock that's on the DKB Insider 2 board. So if I forget, or if this Amiga goes into somebody else's hands and they take the DKB board out and put some other expansion board in of some type, and they use the same Workbench disk, if I pass them on, it'll come up and it'll probably say that it can't find a real-time clock. And so as long as there's a comment in the Workbench disk startup sequence and somebody knows to look in there for it, they'll see that it now says RT clock for use with the DKB Insider 2 board.